The evacuation sirens had long since fallen silent. In the crystalline halls of the Eternum Palace, Princess Queen Elsa stood before the holographic display, watching the last transport ships disappear into the violet sky of Novaris Prime. The Krell invasion fleet hung in orbit like a swarm of metallic locusts, their weapons charging for the final bombardment. "Your Majesty, we need to go, now." Elsa turned to face the only other person remaining in the palace. Sergeant Daniel Torres stood in his battered combat armor, plasma rifle slung across his back, his dark eyes reflecting the emergency lighting that pulsed red throughout the chamber. "They're all gone," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of a civilization's collapse. 10 billion souls, evacuated in 72 hours. "And you should have been on the first ship," Daniel replied, approaching her carefully. "The diplomatic corps has been screaming at command for 3 days. Why did you stay?" Elsa's fingers danced across the holographic interface, pulling up schematics of the palace's lower levels. "Because there's something here worth more than my life, Sergeant. Something the Krell cannot be allowed to possess." Daniel's jaw tightened. He'd been assigned to the Royal Guard for 6 months, long enough to know that Elsa wasn't just another pampered royal. She held 3 doctorates in quantum mechanics, had personally designed half the defensive systems protecting Novaris, and possessed a mind that made even the greatest human scientists look like children playing with blocks. "The Nexus," he said, understanding dawning. "You're talking about the quantum probability engine." "Not just any engine," Elsa corrected, her luminescent silver eyes meeting his. "The only functional reality editing device in this galaxy. My ancestors built it over 3,000 years. It can rewrite causality itself within a limited sphere. In the wrong hands." "The Krell could reshape entire star systems," Daniel finished. "They could make their defeats never happen, make their enemies never exist." "Precisely." Elsa closed the display with a gesture. "I've been trying to destroy it for the past 48 hours. The quantum locks are complicated. I need another 16 hours to complete the shutdown sequence without causing a catastrophic probability cascade that would unravel this entire sector of space." Daniel checked his rifle's charge. "Then I guess we're buying you 16 hours. "Against an invasion force." Elsa raised an elegant eyebrow. "Sergeant, there are mathematical probabilities, and then there are impossibilities." "Good thing I never was great at math," Daniel said with a grim smile. "Your Majesty, I've got 3 questions. 1. Can you shoot?" Elsa retrieved a plasma pistol from beneath her ceremonial robes. "I've qualified expert marksman in 7 weapon systems." 2. Can you run? "These robes are deceptive. I ran the crystalline marathon last year." And 3. Daniel pulled up a tactical map on his wrist display, showing the palace's defensive grid. "Can you interface with the security AI? Because if you can feed me targeting data and control the automated defenses, we might actually have a chance." Elsa's expression shifted from resignation to calculation. The palace defenses were designed to repel a siege force for up to a month with full staffing, with just 2 operators and creative use of the automation. "We fake a full garrison," Daniel said, warming to the strategy. "Hit-and-run tactics. Make them think there's a battalion in here. Slow them down sector by sector." "Sergeant Torres, you may have just upgraded our chances from impossible to merely catastrophically unlikely." "I'll take it, Your Majesty." The Krell came 6 hours later. Their assault ships pierced through the palace's outer shields like needles through fabric, disgorging hundreds of their warrior-caste soldiers. The Krell were biomechanical horrors, silicon-based life forms that had replaced most of their organic components with weaponized technology. They felt no fear, no mercy, and no hesitation. But they had never faced an opponent like Elsa. From the central command nexus, she orchestrated a symphony of destruction. Automated turrets awakened in calculated sequences, creating kill zones that the Krell couldn't predict. Blast doors sealed and opened at precise moments, channeling the invaders into corridor after corridor of overlapping fire. Gravity plating activated and deactivated, sending Krell soldiers tumbling into ambush points where Daniel waited with ruthless efficiency. Daniel moved through the palace like a ghost, his combat experience perfectly complementing Elsa's tactical genius. She would mark targets on his HUD, calculate optimal firing positions, even predict enemy movements based on their formation patterns. He would execute, then relocate before the Krell could triangulate his position. 37 confirmed kills, Daniel reported, sliding into cover beside her in the command center. But they're adapting, learning our patterns. Expected, Elsa said, her fingers flying across multiple holographic keyboards simultaneously. I'm running probability simulations now. They'll breach this level in 4 hours and 12 minutes. And the Nexus needs 6 more hours. Daniel reloaded his rifle. Then we go deeper, lead them away from the Nexus chamber. How many levels can we sacrifice? Elsa looked at him, something like respect flickering in her alien eyes. You realize we'll be trapped. Been trapped since I volunteered to stay behind, Your Majesty. He checked his grenades. Now we're just choosing where to make our stand. They fell back through 17 levels of the ancient palace, fighting a running battle that consumed hours and lives. The Krell paid for every corridor in blood and circuitry, but they kept coming. Daniel's armor was scarred and dented, his ammunition running low. Elsa's robes were torn and burned, her face smudged with ash and coolant fluid. But they were still alive. In the deepest chamber of the palace, beside the humming quantum engines of the Nexus, Elsa input the final sequence. The device began to collapse in on itself, its probability matrices unwinding, its reality editing functions cascading into controlled failure. 15 minutes, she announced. Daniel positioned himself at the chamber entrance, setting up his last defensive position. Then we hold for 15 minutes. The Krell came like a tide of metal and fury. Daniel fired until his rifle overheated, switched to his sidearm, then to grenades. Beside him, Elsa fought with her plasma pistol, her royal training evident in every precise shot. When the Nexus finally collapsed, the explosion wasn't loud or dramatic. It simply ceased to exist, taking with it the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. In the silence that followed, Daniel and Elsa stood back to back, surrounded by Krell warriors. It's been an honor, Your Majesty, Daniel said quietly. The honor, Elsa replied, was entirely mine, Sergeant. But before the Krell could fire, the palace shuddered. Above them, the fleet that had been declared lost, the Human Defense Force's Third Fleet, dropped out of quantum space, weapons blazing. They doubled back, refusing to abandon their world. In the chaos of the orbital battle, a strike team breached the palace and extracted them both. Later, as Novaris Prime began its liberation, Elsa found Daniel in the medical bay. You broke mathematics, Sergeant, she said with the ghost of a smile. We survived an impossibility. Daniel grinned through his exhaustion. Like I said, Your Majesty, never was good at math.